Good morning, and welcome to East Rose Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. Welcome to those visiting us through the magic of the internet, and to those here in the chapel. And I want to extend a special welcome to our first-time visitors. We're very glad you're here with us. My name is Patty Walsh, and I am the worship leader for today. Our own Reverend Robin will be speaking in anticipation of Labor Day. She will explore the power of our hands to create, to labor, to meditate or pray, to communicate love, to care, to vote, and to give life the shape of justice. Member Anne Nesse will present a talk and show her video on photographing hands. East Rose acknowledges that for at least 13,000 years, many tribes and bands of people lived here where our church home and our communities are. We remember and we honor those who made their homes in this land, those living here now, and those who have gone before. In peace, may we share this land and honor each other. Let's take a moment now to greet each other, both here in the chapel and online. Please wave to the folks. Yes, there you go. And now, please, turn to your neighbors and say hello. There'll be more time for visiting after the service. So please join us after service for tea or coffee. I love the energy in this room. These are the words of Megan Dowdall. We enter this sanctuary for kindness and comfort. May rough, worn hands and aching backs be healed. We enter this sanctuary of hope for equality. May those who labor to survive live to know justice. We enter this sanctuary of love and vocation. May our bonds of solidarity be strengthened. We enter this sanctuary of courage and friendship, hands reaching for hands. We light this flame in honor of work, not only the work we do for pay with our hands, our backs, and our minds. That is important, yes, but also the work we do for love, the work we do to help others stay alive and belong instead of being outcast, the work we do to ensure that people are paid fairly, work reasonable hours, and have quality in their lives. The work we do caring for the young, the old, and the infirm. The work we do to mentor, to educate, to advocate, and to enrich the community, the country, and the world. We honor the labors that support our world and all the work we do to make this a better place.
Thank you, Patty. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good to see you all today. What a great big crowd we have. Yay. Nice to see Cynthia here, who's recovering, and some of you we haven't seen for a while, and new faces as well. Today we celebrate, as Patty said, what moves in the hand. Thank you so much for bringing things for our altar today. I'm never sure whether people are going to see that in the description and actually do it. But look at all these wonderful representations of what our hands can do and create. And if you didn't bring something, that's okay. I'm sure there is something you would have brought that represents that. Our opening words today are by my colleague, the Reverend Lucas Hergert. It's a poem he wrote called Your Hands. Your hands, the ones that you are holding together in prayer or desperation or hope, the ones with the tiny scar you carried since that bicycle accident all those years before, the ones that today may shake with worry or sit still from the gravity of the headlines, those hands, your hands, there is something to remember, a needful thing to remember about your hands. That they are the same hands that petted the cool, slick back of a kitten on its first day, the same ones that flattened the crumpled edges of a construction paper heart after the glue came unstuck, the same hands that just last night pulled your family's patchwork under the chin of your youngest as you whispered, "It's going to be okay," and wanted it to be so. The same hands that offered in the simplest gesture of gift-giving tissue to a stranger who, tears streaking down her face, asked, "Why? Why?" Addressed not to you, but to the sky, asked of a world whose glue had come unstuck. They are the same hands that give the world its most needful thing. You know the most needful thing. You know because your hands have given it, offered it, or tried to offer the kindest touch exactly when it was needed or hoped for. And nothing can take away the brilliant, beautiful power of your hands, not to pull a trigger, but to proclaim the softness of the world. Nothing can annul the kindness in your touch, because there is power in your hands, the power that beckons to remake the world always as though it was their first day. Our opening hymn is a favorite. It's number 357, Bright Morning Stars. The words will also be on the screen. Please rise as you are able.
Now it's time for the story for all ages. Kathie Loveall will read the story for all ages.
You want to just sit up in the front? That's perfect. Thank you. Hey, Riley, come on up.
Kathie, your mic.
I thought I turned it on. Wait a second here.
Thank you.
I am not technologically adept. Let's see. It says it's on.
Now it is.
Okay. So I don't have this lovely essay that Tara does, but I wanted to introduce you to these amazing kids who are the backbone of our religious education program. But we have Briar and Fiona and Riley, and we have a new person today, Fia, is that correct? Okay. And one of the things we always do with our hands is we light our own chalice when we go back, and then we all say something, and we're going to do it. At least 3 of these kids know it. Fia doesn't know it yet, but she will. So we make use. And I need you to say it with me, good and loud. Ready? We are Unitarian Universalists with minds that think, hearts that love, and hands that are ready to serve. And these kids do amazing job serving. What are the things, I can think of 3 or 4 things that we have done to serve East Rose. Can you remember what those are?
Potluck.
We make food for potluck. What else?
Gardening.
We put in a garden.
We make food for people.
We make food for people, both gardening and one more thing?
Garbage.
And we pick up garbage once a month outside. And these kids are just amazing. And so I wanted you to know that about these kids. And then I have a story, these hands. And after our story, we're going to go to the park. We will do our own joys and concerns. We'll make this work. This is These Hands, written by Margaret H. Mason, illustrated by Floyd Cooper. Look at these hands, Joseph. Did you know these hands used to tie a triple bowline knot in 3 seconds flat? Well, I can still help a young fellow learn to tie his shoes. Yes, I can. Look at these hands, Joseph. Did you know these hands used to make the ivory sing like a sparrow in springtime? Well, I can still show a young fellow how to play heart and soul. Yes, I can. Look at these hands, Joseph. Did you know these hands used to pluck the ace of spades right out of thin air? Well, I can still teach a young fella how to do a waterfall shuffle. Yes, I can. Look at these hands, Joseph. Did you know these hands used to throw a curveball faster than a dive-bombing honeybee? Well, I can still help a young fellow learn how to hit a line drive. Yes, I can. Look at these hands, Joseph. Did you know these hands were not allowed to mix the bread dough in the Wonder Bread factory? Did you know these hands were not allowed to touch the bread dough in the Wonder Bread factory? These hands were only allowed to sweep the floors and work the line and load the trucks, because the bosses said white people would not want to eat bread touched by these hands. Well, these hands joined with other hands, and we wrote our petitions, and we carried our signs, and we raised our voices together. Now, any hands can mix bread dough, no matter their color. Now, any hands can touch the bread dough, no matter their color. Yes, they can. Look at these hands, Grandpa. These hands used to not be able to tie a shoe, or play the piano, or shuffle the cards, or hit the ball. Now I can do all that, plus bake a fine loaf of bread, can't I? Why, yes, you can, Joseph. Look at those hands. Those hands can do anything, anything at all in this whole wide world. Yes, you can. And now the grown-ups are going to stay and talk about hands, think about hands, listen about hands. And we are going to the park. So stand up.
We're starting today not with the silence, but with a blessing of your hands. And I'd like you to take a couple breaths just to get settled. Put your feet on the floor, uncross your arms. We're not going to close our eyes right now because we're going to be looking at our hands. But take a breath in through your nose, 4 beats in through your nose, 5 or 6 beats out through your mouth, creating a sense of spaciousness and calm within your body. And look at your hands. And breathe. See what kind of spaciousness you could create and feel that energy coming through your body and coming down your arms into your hands. And hold them out in front of you or set them in your lap. Look at them. Turn them around. Look at what a marvel they are. Spirit of life, blessed be the work of our hands. Blessed be these hands that have touched life. Blessed be these hands that have nurtured creativity. Blessed be these hands that have held pain. Blessed be these hands that have embraced with passion. Blessed be these hands that have tended gardens. Blessed be these hands that have closed in anger. Blessed be these hands that have planted new seeds and harvested ripe fields. Blessed be these hands that have cleaned, washed, mopped, scrubbed, sawed, and welded. Blessed be these hands that have become knotty with age. Blessed be these hands that are wrinkled and scarred from doing justice. Blessed be these hands that have reached out and been received. Blessed be these hands that hold the promise of the future. Blessed be the work of our hands, O Spirit of life. Now I invite you to close your eyes, go into a deeper place of relaxation. 4 beats in through your nose, 5 or 6 beats out through your mouth, just relaxing into spaciousness and breath. Come gently out of your breathing with a few more rounds. Open your eyes and come back into this space. We'll remain seated for our quiet song, number 123, Spirit of Life.
I have always been interested in taking pictures of people, especially when they're not posing and they're working. Especially doing what they love to do. I love the emotion that this art can capture in a single frame. So that at a time when digital photography had almost replaced film, I purchased an old medium format camera. The negatives are about this big. And I made a dark room in my laundry room so that I could capture this emotion more clearly. A little later on, after taking pictures of musicians and other things I loved, a purpose struck me that was fundamental in my mind. It came from politicians that I had heard and still often hear vocally today. Why don't we equally respect each individual's work? Why is one particular life or one profession viewed and valued more importantly than another's? I later now saw this idea of equality of value come to life in the pictures of the hands that you're about to see in this slideshow. I was also honored in the past to show these pictures where I lived for a while in an exhibit at the Capitol in Boise, Idaho, because it particularly related to political decisions that they had to make. You know, how do you value the work of people? And that is the best way to see these pictures. If you can see them, I couldn't bring them all to you enlarged because it's kind of a big exhibit. And luckily you have more time to look at each picture. In fact, I'd like to blow them up really big so you'd really, but I couldn't. The larger I had, you'd have to had the larger way up there and you'd have to have the photo paper. It would be hard. There are some places in Portland that can do it, but I've never done it. And so anyway, even though these slides will go by quickly, try to imagine looking at them a little longer. The act of focusing in on an individual's hands in black and white tells the story of a complete and generous economy, even without any words. Color, in fact, is distracting to the emotional image. The pictures of the work that each of the characters in this slideshow portrays exemplifies our oneness with one another. A few pictures show arms when it was needed or show a face meant to clarify the meaning of the print. I learned a lot from doing these pictures. That each person's hands made a lasting memory of something that was important for that individual. And this was especially true when observed by their friends and loved ones, because each individual's hands are so unique. Even no matter what their age, your relatives will recognize your hands. What I also came to see more clearly, even though I knew this logically, was that those who participate in government can more wisely govern when each of the sectors of our economy are truly respected. From children to the differently abled, to teachers, to homemakers, to administrators, to workers, to manufacturers, to healthcare workers, to those who do mechanical work, to foresters and farmers, to those who work in transportation, to those who protect us, to the retired. All of us are significant to a working, respectful economy. Could all of us be valued somewhat more equally?
between the emotional music and the beautiful photographs. Thank you so much, Barbara and Anne, for that. My scripture this morning is the Gospel according to Peanuts. My sages and apostles are Charlie Brown and company. In one memorable comic strip, Charlie is eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and he looks admirably at his hands, and he says, "Hands are fascinating things. I like my hands. I think I have nice hands. My hands seem to have a lot of character. These hands may someday accomplish great things. These hands may someday do marvelous works. They may build mighty bridges or heal the sick or hit home runs or hold on to that football or write soul-stirring novels. These hands may someday change the course of destiny." Lucy looks down at Charlie's hands and says, "They've got jelly on them." Oh, Lucy. Lucy's comment, although characteristically insensitive and blunt, is right on target. And so is Charlie's assessment of his amazing potential-laden hands. As my colleague, the Reverend Tom Owen Told, notes, we start by recognizing that our hands are covered with jelly, and they always will be. But they are all we have. They are who we are. Messy, to be sure, but we keep using our hands in acts of justice and kindness so that life will be less hard, less evil. So take a moment again to just look at your hands the way Charlie did. Whether yours are arthritic or limber, wrinkled or smooth, graceful or stubby, jelly-covered or pristine, they're a marvel, aren't they? Now, here's a couple factoids. Each hand has 1,300 nerve endings per square inch, 27 separate bones, flexor and extensor muscles, and then there's that nifty opposable thumb that we're all so proud of. With our brains sending the cues, our hands are able to touch and do and interpret the universe. We lift our hands in praise or protest, rouse them for applause, enfold them in embrace, connect them in prayer, facilitate them in creation, use them to play music, dirty them in service, and at our worst, clinch them in rage and thrust them forward in violence. Today, we're celebrating our hands at their most noble and all they can do to create beauty, beloved community, and justice. Here within this congregation and beyond these walls in the wider world, and Anne Nesse's reflection and extraordinary photographs lead the way. The Reverend Owen Toll recounts the jelly story in his fine book that I love. It's just a little book. It's called Free Thinking Mystics with Hands. And that's how Tom describes us Unitarian Universalists, free-thinking mystics with hands. And it is as good a description as I have ever heard. We're free thinkers who've eschewed a unifying creed. In our open search for truth and meaning, we balance reason and mystery, and we use our hands in the here and now to bring our faith into action. Our children shared with us the ditty that I'm going to share again with you. We are Unitarian Universalists with minds that think, hearts that love, and hands that are ready to serve. Using traditional religious language, one could argue that we combine the theological doctrines of faith and works in a very unique and modern way. Now, folks have been debating this issue of faith and works and the resultant salvation quotient, sweepstakes, for centuries. If you're a little rusty on your Reformation theology, and why wouldn't you be, my tuition dollars at work. One of the hallmarks of the Protestant movements of the 16th century, especially for Lutherans and Calvinists, was a shift from the Catholic idea of salvation by a combination of works and faith to one of salvation by grace or faith alone. Now, an individual could not work for salvation. It was predetermined before one's birth. You were expected to live a good Christian life for the glory of God alone. You were supposed to be good because it would please God, even if there wasn't a payoff in the end. Now, our two historical denominations, Unitarianism and Universalism, sprang from a progressive liberalization of these ideas. Yet when it comes to the faith-works dichotomy, we reside pretty firmly in the camp of works. Astonishing as it may sound, that we hold this very much in common with Catholics. Even so, we depart from both camps by blending faith and works only in the here and now, with really no interest at all in the topic of salvation in the hereafter. And that was especially new. No eschatology, no concern about salvation. We need to make a beachhead for salvation in the here and now, right here on earth. Our UU theology of dirty hands has many founders and shapers, notably Clarence Skinner, who you may have heard of. He was a radical universalist and key player in the liberal wing of the American social gospel movement in the early 1900s. Skinner and other Protestant clergy used messages of hope, compassion, and reform to combat the increasingly unfair distribution of the nation's wealth, that sounds familiar, and the Puritan legacy of America's basic contempt for poverty. At the time, Skinner seized on a word that was fairly new. He seized on the word brotherhood as a guide to transforming society and was quite progressive in calling for economic and social universalism, beginning with a reassessment of middle-class privilege. It just seems like some things just don't really change. But Skinner isn't here anymore, and we are. Skinner interpreted the social gospel in global terms that went beyond traditional Christianity in arguing that salvation comes in, by, and through a saved world, the world we live in now. And in my view, a saved world continues to mean today what it meant for Skinner, one in which humankind saves itself and society from a humanized hell by establishing that beachhead for beloved community on earth. And we succeed by and large with a theology of dirty, busy, jelly-covered hands, doing what we can to tamper with the status quo. Or in the words of the hymn we sang earlier, the spirit of life moving in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. You may be surprised to learn, as I was, the true origins of Carolyn McDade's Spirit of Life, a song which serves as a kind of UU anthem, even though McDade is a Congregationalist who lives on Cape Cod. In the spring of 1995, McDade typed out a letter, and I have a copy in my files of the original letter, beginning, "Dear friends." In it, she asked that her song not be altered or changed, words or verses added or taken away in order to personalize the meaning of the song. As she puts it, the song does not become the person, and the person does not become the song. She explains that Spirit of Life is a simple prayer, and that its inspiration came from her passion for social justice. She writes, "During a time of intense anti-war and social justice activism, I drove to a friend's house from yet another meeting. The night was late, the streets quiet. As I let her out, I confided how dry I felt, like cardboard years in the attic. The slightest motion of air, and I felt like I would disintegrate into dust. Even now, I remember the despair that that image conveys. Finally, she writes, at home, my family asleep, I did what I have done so many times. I moved to the piano in the dark. I sat there, and in singing, my heart was freed. There was no plan in that moment, only a deep and immediate desire to stay faithful to the movements I loved, to the people of those movements, their tally of goodness toward a world healthy and just for all, a world in which reverence shone through all of us. The prayer, the song was complete, just as it was. Now, short of finding our way to the piano and composing a renowned hymn for justice, although certainly if you'd like to do that, please do. How might we begin and how might we strive to have some impact? I remember some years ago breaking my wrist in an ice skating mishap. When you're falling, do not use your hand to break your fall. And feeling so frustrated that one of my hands was incapacitated. It was even my left hand, my dominant hand, so it was particularly difficult. But somehow I managed to get by and be productive. I think in the world, metaphorically, sometimes it feels like we're walking around with broken wrists, unable to experience a deep sense of usefulness or utility or facility. Perhaps we assume that only a Mother Teresa-sized commitment to social change is worthy or laudable. And really, just the opposite is true. Small things often. Small things often. One postcard, one phone call, one action, one thing dropped in the barrel for snowcap, one thing can be even more effective because small things often on top of small things often lead to change. In so many ways here at East Rose, we can use these amazing jelly-covered hands to do our part to allow justice to move in our hands. So I'm asking you to join our activists, and they are growing by the day. Therese and Kim and Kaaren and others who are doing so much. Bring your ideas and your energy, your faith, and your opposable thumbs. You can make a difference. You're invited to affect the tenor of the day and get your hands dirty. Yet in addition to the kind of hand-soothing outreach opportunities offered by our Good Trouble Gang, our RE program, my idea of justice also includes the hand-clasping enterprise of creating beloved community amongst us, right here. This wonderful, fairly filled room today, which is so great to see. And if you are a newcomer today, I hope you've gotten the feeling, the real feeling, that we are a beloved community, cares about each other, works together, listens to each other, holds each other in our hands. When they grow up, the kids we saw and others that weren't here today, and they look at their hands, what might the young people down the hall say about this place called East Rose UU? I'm hoping they will say they got their hands dirty, collecting food for the hungry, purchasing gifts for needy children, gardening, cleaning up, being part of this community, finding role models and mentors among you. Can we serve as those role models for them in ways that offer opportunities for them to say, oh yes, East Rose, that was the place where my mind was expanded, my heart was open, and my hands got really dirty. It was my beloved community, where I was empowered to see my amazing jelly-covered hands as instruments capable of changing the course of destiny. One thing we need to do is to get outside our comfort zones because they become very comfortable. Let's not sit on our hands. Let's not think small things don't matter. Imagine what we could accomplish if we put all of our collective intelligence, goodwill, connections, resources, and labor to work. Just imagine what could move in our hands, giving life the shape of justice. And the rewards far better than eternal salvation, I'd say. To me, a more satisfying payoff is what my colleague Richard Gilbert describes as a deep sense of gratitude we derive from service, a clearer appreciation for our own blessings, merited or not, thankfulness at being given the opportunity to serve, to make a difference in the lives of people, to kon alum, to repair the world. So look at your hands one more time. What do you see? Jelly, dirt, power, potential, love, faith, the place where that ring used to be, Jean, that you've now given in love to a family member? What do you see? If you don't see those things, look harder, because they are there. Faith alone cannot save. It can support. Let faith and works together move in your hands down to those many nerve endings in your fingertips. The Reverend Kaaren Anderson writes about a time when she put down her book to ponder her hands, what they touch and experience and create. I don't want smooth hands, she writes. I want mine to speak to my person, to my life's work, to the sum of my parts. I stare at my hands, she recalls, and whisper, Amen. So may it be for us. Blessed be, blessed we, and amen. Our final hymn is Building a New Way. It's number 1017 in the Teal hymnal. Please rise as you are able.
That was great. Half of each Sunday's offering is shared with a local nonprofit working in our community. And in this third quarter, we are supporting Outgrowing Hunger. Outgrowing Hunger builds and operates community farms and gardens for refugees, immigrants, and other people who care about affordable food access in Portland and Gresham. If you are a first-time visitor, please let the basket pass you by. You are our guest. In these words of Erica Hewitt, the offering that we take each Sunday isn't just a stale habit. It's an opportunity to reconnect in this place and to this people. Our offering is an affirmation, a yes. When we give, we say yes to something we value. With our gifts freely given, may we say yes to the values of our faith. May our offering help to practice Unitarian Universalism within and beyond our congregation as tools to empower our mission. We now gratefully receive the gifts of this congregation. It is our work shared with each other in covenant that creates and sustains this beloved community. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light within. That light lives on in the directions we have chosen today. The light of this faith lives in us, together in our hearts, minds, bodies, and spirits. Amen, and blessed be.
Thank you to Patty, to Rev Barbara for the beautiful music, for Luna for her AV expertise, to Anne for her incredible contribution today. Thank you. Our benediction today is actually, before I do the benediction, there is a Spirited Conversations group after church today. We'll meet here in a little circle. We'll talk about how you might have been inspired around the idea of your dirty, jelly-colored hands, and look at this interesting paradigm that I found called What's Your Social Change Role? It's really very interesting to look at, whether you're an experimenter, a weaver, a storyteller. It's very interesting. So we'll talk about that if you want to get coffee and come in here and join the Spirited Conversations. I also, I want to just really encourage you to look at all the amazing things going on here by reading Petals. We've changed the order of things a bit to try to get the things in front of you that we think are timely and important. I especially want to point out that Eric Chewy is going to be leading us in the Climate Revival Weekend activity at the end of September. So just take a minute to read these things, and the auction is coming up. So thank you. The benediction today is by my colleagues Amy Friedman and Keith Cron. These hands connect us to one another. Our hands are the tangible link that connects us to one another. Look and see those around you who have experienced so much that is life. These hands have worked, are working, and will work to shape a better world. Go in peace, go in love, work for justice, go forth and bless the world with your hands. Blessed be.
It is now time for the announcements. I think some of you've heard already, so I'll repeat. There'll be spiritual conversation immediately after this, well, during coffee hour, not immediately after the service. We meet right here. I've been to these. They're really interesting. Never the same twice, so I encourage everybody to come. Eric Chewy, who I don't, oh, Eric's outside in the lobby. Eric will be leading the congregation's effort on climate change. Details are in the petals, and second from Eric is that the hiking group this week is going to Astoria. We are going to be meeting here at 8:30 or 9, Eric? 8:30 here in the parking lot so that we can carpool. We'll do some walking around downtown. We'll go walk on a trail for a bit and stop at a restaurant for lunch. So, and now I have some on paper. But the first is we're going to invite Katie Norris, who is somewhere. We have a couple of people making in-person announcements because I lost that battle. And but I am going to ask people to be brief.
Thank you. Reverend Susie asked me to make an announcement, so I'll just blame it on her. As you all have heard now and probably read in Petals, we're having our 30th annual auction, How Time Flies, in October. In order to make this successful, we need to build out our online auction site. I've actually built the site, so now I'm ready to take all the goodies. So you can email me at auction@eastrose.org and just send me a photo of what it is you want to sell and then a description, and I'll contact you with questions that I'll have about how to post it. So the 3rd of September is the date given here. I will actually give you more time. But just start sending them to me now, and I'll start working with you to get it posted. And that's it.
Thank you, Kate.
Was that brief enough?
Okay, the next brief announcement will be from Jean Wygant. I think it's also an auction
I
announcement.
like the way you're emphasizing the word brief. Thank you.
Disclaimer, before you make an in-person announcement, it should be cleared, and mine was, and I'm sure that Katie's was too. We had a communication confusion, I guess, because I'm making an announcement about the auction. But I decided, rather than someone standing up here and saying things and then saying, look at the pedals, there needs to be a little bit of hoopla. So this is a little bit of hoopla. Okay, so you see what this says? That's the title of the auction, How Time Flies. And we can have lots of fun and earn lots of money for our church, but it needs you to participate. So if you're going to offer something for sale, it needs to be in by the 3rd. Katie just said you got more time, but the 3rd is 1 week from Tuesday, coming up fast. So the forms are out in the narthex lobby, whatever you want to call it, out there on the table with the red cloth. Get a form and fill it out. And if you're offering an item, it doesn't say on the form anything about items, but just fit it in there.
Can we say September 8th?
Well, the 3rd for getting these forms in.
I see.
But
Okay.
if you can start contacting me now and
Okay,
keep collecting things.
form by the 3rd, week from Tuesday. The 3rd, October 3rd through 5th is the online auction. Now, if you don't know how to do it, or if you don't want to do it, ask someone to help you or to do it for you. Ask somebody who knows. Not me, don't ask me. And then on October 5th is the party, and that's going to be a lot of fun. We need some help. There are sign-up sheets on that table with the red cloth on it out there. And come and have a good time, some fun and fellowship together. I printed off some papers that had a little more information from a clipboard that's back there, and I am so pleased to say that I didn't print enough. There are more of you here than I have papers for. So I'm just going to put a few around here, and you can pick them up. It just has a little additional information that's also on the clipboard out there. So I'm done.
You have a question, which is preferable, hard copy or digital?
I mean, you can find it on pedals, and there's a link to, I don't know what you're handing out. Oh, it's probably the list of, like, ideas. Gina, are you handing out the list of ideas?
But the forms, do you prefer to receive them digital?
Yes.
Hard
If
copy
you
or
are
what?
filling out a form, hand it in at the office.
Okay, and let's have the rest of this conversation during coffee hour, before the spiritual discussion, but during the coffee hour. And the last brief announcement is from Linda Schaldak. I bet we can guess Linda's going to talk about suppers.
Can you use the
Microphone, please, Linda.
Please use
No,
the
you need to
microphone.
use the microphone.
I think it got in the pedals about the friendship dinners that are starting. Did it get in? I get my pedals on Sunday after church. Okay, so September 28th. And what is this all about? Friendship circle dinners. The sign-up sheets is left side, right side. You can be a host, which we need for the thing to happen at all, or a guest. And please print your phone number and email clearly. Sometimes I have real trouble figuring that out. So small groups of people, generally around 7, 8, 9 people, will meet in a home, and I put people in groups according to their dietary needs, and then I call the hosts, they call you, and it's a lot of fun, a good way to get to know people in a small group over good food. September 28th.
I want to put in a shout out to Linda, who's been organizing this for very many years. I believe pre-COVID was when Linda took this up. So that's like that other life. So This service is over. Thank you for joining us. To the folks online, we hope to see you next Sunday. And to the folks in the chapel, please join us in the back for coffee and tea, and then come on up for the spiritual discussion.